All right, everybody. Welcome back. We're live again. This is your host, Young Brando, and we are back with an auction review, but it can always turn into something else, some more watch talk or preview of whatever else is coming up in Geneva, London, Hong Kong, and beyond. So stay tuned. I have set a chat goal, $5 and more. 5 of those will give this live stream a new lease on life and have it go on for another hour. For now, I'm scheduled to go for about an hour until 6:40. I will start with some general observations, and then, with my apologies to I Heart Maldives, I will start by looking at the 3 lots that he asked for and that I missed from the Phillips Reloaded auction. All 3 performed quite well, fairly well, as it were. Some in a record-breaking fashion. So we'll get to those, but I'll start with saying a few things about the generally good results from the Geneva auction so far, and how we should perhaps look at them, how we should interpret them. Hit the like button, by the way. That's always much needed. This channel depends on the support of a very tight-knit group of supporters. So that ratio is very important for me, more than perhaps numbers of subscribers and whatever else. By the way, with that, we are getting to a combined follower count of 5,000 between here and Instagram, and every one of them are earned. Every single like, every single follower, subscriber on this platform has forever been earned and not bought, like some other losers of all sorts. So I do appreciate that. So please continue supporting the channel and sending the link out so it reaches other collectors and enthusiasts who we care about. So I was gonna start with just saying that all right, there's someone in the background though, someone whom I wasn't quite expecting. So let's check it out. Oh, why did we go dark? Oh, see, you still didn't fix your internet connection. Should I really send you some part of those super chats so you get a better Wi-Fi or router or something like that?
Nothing will be able to help, really.
You have tried everything.
It just, I've got a family with they love streaming, so
Okay.
they're always streaming something. So I get limited bandwidth.
Wait, they are content creators like you, or you mean they are watching?
Content consumers.
They're content consumers. Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, no one's gonna ask for your kids' TikTok. Don't worry about that. I was wondering if they actually create content just to see whether it runs in the family. I hope it doesn't. Yeah, that's great. I hope it doesn't run in my family for sure. It's not a great career, so to speak.
What's up this evening? How you doing?
Good. I mean, the great people have asked for you in the chat already. Logan Hall's grill stream said, "Will OC be on tonight?" Of course, that question can be read in so many ways. I don't even know who Logan Hall is, but I hope he was asking for it in a positive way, right? If
Let's
he's
assume.
here, I will stay. If he's here, I will give a like. If he's here, I'll super chat or something.
There you go.
Ryan Joffrey is there. Godspeed, Brando. Pure class you are. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was just gonna say, from a broader perspective, obviously, people try to achieve some kind of liquidity in the run-up to an election. as you know, it's always the end of the world, more so in the US, but generally this is kind of part of Occidental culture. The world is always ending, apocalypse is near, Jesus is coming back, and whatever else. It's great. It kept us going until 2024. I'm sure many more millennia to come. But of course, with the election now behind us, and with a candidate elected who seemingly gives some inspiration to people who make such investments, there's a certain boost. And I've talked to a lot of genuine collectors whose circle mostly consists of collectors and not shady dealers and other sorts of vermin. And they were describing the mood in Geneva as let's buy some watches, right? People were really burning to buy watches. And I heard that already on Wednesday, and it bore itself out, at least from the Phillips auctions that we previewed. We looked at Christie's a little bit too, if I'm not mistaken. But ultimately, I think these were some great results. Now, I'm not so sure whether this will have an effect on the lower end of the market in any way. A lot of the watches that broke records were very exceptional watches. Even among great watches, they were quite special, and we will start with about 3 of them. And I also don't know whether even this sort of confidence on the auction market is necessarily long-lasting, and whether we will even see it continue in the spring. I'm not sure. I can't see that far ahead yet, but I think it would be. Yeah, we wouldn't want to get carried away with just one successful season. What do you think?
I'm here to observe and learn, and not really. I mean, but it seems like everything sold, and seemed like things sold at reasonably good amounts. And there were a couple of standouts there, like and I'm sure we'll cover them, the F. Pigeon and a few of the others that were highlights of the auction. But yeah, I think people came to buy, they bought, and we'll see if that bears itself out in additional auctions happening tomorrow morning and on Tuesday as well.
That by the way, is I think the most beautiful and diplomatic description of an auction season that I've ever seen. People came to buy and they bought. I think that's true. I think that's factually 100% correct.
You always see some pieces for people who tend to follow secondary prices. You always tend to see some pieces that are kind of staple pieces, like Hulks and Pepsis and normal Daytonas and Day Dates and things like that, go for what we may think is well over reasonable market value when you factor in the buyer's premium and customs and taxes and all those things. You end up scratching your head going, why is someone paying a hammer price of $85,000 for a 5711?
Would you like to explain that, or?
I mean,
I have a few ways of thinking about that, but go ahead.
No, I mean, I always scratch my head, and I end up thinking that those people, they care about the provenance, they care about their relationship with the auction house. Maybe to them, it's worth paying a significant premium over market value because those funds, they need to spend those funds for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know. You probably know far better than I mean, people always say, "Oh, money laundering." They throw that out there. But
no, I think my main take would not be that, which is not to say that everything is clean, right? You know me. I'm in my heart of hearts, I'm a pessimist about human nature, about everything. So I don't need to tell you at every single turn about these things. But for me, it's much more simple. I think it has a lot to do with the psychology of inhabiting that space. You know, even people with very high net worth, even people who have the luxury to take almost an entire week off and get to Geneva and attend these auctions in person, have a sense of, we came here to buy watches and we will buy watches. So when you bid on something with serious intention to buy, that has like a pre-auction estimate at a ceiling of a couple of $1 million or perhaps more, and you lose out on that, you feel like, okay, it's boy math, as they say, or it's like watch collector math. Oh, I have $2 million to spend now. What am I gonna buy? Okay, I'm gonna buy a Nautilus at 150. I'm gonna buy a Daytona at 50,000. I'm gonna buy, you know, an AP Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar at 200,000 because it's a very special example, because it has this provenance. By the way, I don't think people who send in advance bids, pardon me, and much less people who are actually on the phone, are shielded from this kind of excitement, involvement, and embroilment. I don't even know if that's a word, but I said it there.
Sounds good to me.
So I think a lot of it is really very simple human psychology of getting carried away when you are on the floor of the casino. You know, it's nothing much more complicated than that. We can add all sorts of other layers because there's always going on always something going on behind the scenes. But I think it's usually very simple to explain. People either get carried away, or because they do that boy math, you know, oh, I didn't have to spend $3 million on this Tourbillon Souverain that was the second wristwatch ever made by Jean. So now I can spend at least half of that on 5 different watches for the rest of the weekend. There you go. CloudCan agrees, by the way, with my very, amateurish, broad overview. The auction did get an election and stock market bump. I think they couldn't have timed it better if they wanted. It is the fall auction season after all, but you know, it was a risk. I think it was a calculated risk they took, and it paid off. It paid off to have it right after the U.S. elections. Shall we start to talk about actual watches?
Sure.
So I did not realize that I Heart Maldives actually sent 3 specific lots in. And one of them was this record-breaking FP Jean Tourbillon Souverain, which goes also by the code name 1593. Incidentally, that doesn't mean, usually in a lot of exclusive watches, that might mean number 15 out of a series of 93. In this case, it just means it's the 15th watch that he made in year 1993. And this watch actually was only the second wristwatch that Jean ever made, and the first one that he ever sold. And as part of the reloaded auction, this was lot number 14. That was the Friday auction at Phillips Geneva at the Hotel Président. And it sold for $7.3 million. Swiss francs.
That's all in with the buyer's premium. Yeah.
That's right, sir. Yeah.
What was interesting about this particular lot was, I think the range was somewhere around 1 or 2 million, or 2 to 4 million, or 2 to 3, or something like that. And the auctioneer, Oral Box, started the bidding, and it went to 1 or 2 million. Someone immediately said 5 million.
Why not? In excess of 2 million Swiss francs was actually, I think, the sometimes they have that sort of broad phrasing when it comes to watches like this. Now, if we add a few bits, I think, of what into that magical recipe of what makes this watch perhaps more special than a lot of other tourbillon Sovrans by the brands. I think, in many ways, it is their definitive watch. It is perhaps as emblematic as the chronomètre résonance in one way. Certainly not, a few degrees less accessible than even chronomètre bleu in other ways. This watch has all the earmarks of an earlier series, has sort of a raw, more energetic appearance. I think, the value of it being one of the only 3 wristwatches that he actually worked on is inestimable, so to speak, for a collector of that status and that power, I guess, that would make this watch very special. The Breguet hands are beautiful there for the time. You see, they are heat tempered as well. But it kind of feels different than the power reserve indicator.
Less finished and more kind of prototypish in a way.
It really is. It really is that, that has a purplish hue when it comes to the power reserve indicator, which already is a cone and feeler kind of indication. Again, a lot more prototype-like, as you mentioned.
You have that big gaping hole in the dial there, where on the top left, where that power reserve indicator, where that is, right there, yeah.
They, again, for some people, that might be an aesthetic flaw or maybe even a design shortcoming, but it is, after all, only the second wristwatch that he ever made, and one of the only a few, let's say a handful, supposedly 3 watches that he worked himself, and all these details are hand engraved and inked on the dial. So it's, again, I think that does add some value to this piece. Another detail, closed case back. However, the movement is rendered in solid gold, which is a feature that only makes it to the line after the brand actually starts, and more than a decade later in 2004. So that's very interesting. Anything else you would like to add, Ossi?
No, this is the original brass movement, right?
No, it's not. That's the funny thing about this particular watch. Like, very rarely he had watches from early series that had gold movement. So this actually has a gold movement, unlike a lot of the early subscription series and pre-subscription and whatever else that do have brass movements. rhodium-plated brass movements.
It is what it is. It's one of the early Jorns. Someone thinks it's very, very collectible. Uh, there is some speculation. I think Vimal and Kino are talking about it in the chat that maybe this is a representative of the Jorn organization buying it back, so it may be something that is appears in a museum or is part of the Maison's official collection,
It
or
wouldn't
maybe it
surprise
sold.
me.
Yeah, maybe it sold to a collector who agreed to maybe provide it on loan back to the Maison.
Right. It wouldn't surprise me. And I think, like, of all the games that brands play, that's probably the one that's most fair and the one I can actually wrap my head around. And it would be a little unjust to single out FP Jean for that. But certainly, when yes, he had a whole reasoning about legacy as well, but there's a reason why you sell a stake to Chanel. If the Chanel capital wasn't behind Jean, it wouldn't be the global force that it is today. And if it acquired this piece or so many other pieces, either for their museum or for their patrimony program, which is basically their version of CPO, right? We were talking about this last time around.
Right.
More power to them. I mean, I'm not necessarily against that. And obviously, no matter what level of collector, of course, as with any record-breaking price, as with Paul Newman's Newman Daytona, right? $18 million, that's ridiculous. But there was a specific reason behind that too, in the sense that that money now literally went, for the most part, to Newman's own foundation, guaranteeing in perpetuity all these summer camps that they hold and that they have been holding for decades for underprivileged children. So, the person who bought that watch, of course, wanted to buy that iconic watch, but obviously had perhaps less, loosened the purse strings a little more because it was for a charity. And in this case, a legitimate charity as well, which, doesn't always happen in the world of auctioneers, I have to say. By the way, this piece apparently comes with all sorts of interesting things with it. Obviously, the original receipt is one part, but the technical drawings and even the sheet of metal out of which the tourbillon cage was cut, it's kind of ridiculous. Who has any use of that? But I guess, for collectors are a different breed, so it might once again add some value, some intrigue, something. Lot 52, I will go to. This was another lot that I Heart Maldives had requested and that we didn't get to cover in the last auction. This is a white gold Patek Philippe reference 3974. For beginners, it can be described as the chiming version of the 3970. The same dimensions of the case, but obviously this is also a minute repeater in addition to a perpetual calendar, and obviously has a different kind of movement that powers it. Two beautiful fluted lugs. Looks quite great in terms of its condition. One of the things I really like about this particular presentation of the perpetual calendar is the subtly sunken subdials and that slight gradation of like two different shades of off-white, as it were, for the 24-hour.
Yeah, for the day-night indicator.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, it really befits that level of subtle elegance that Patek used to represent, which obviously it no longer does, but that's another um, discussion altogether. If
Yeah.
only all the watches they produced were like your annual calendar, OC. But
This is
unfortunately,
the kind of this is the kind of watch where I would look at it and go, "What's that discoloration on the sub dial? This is weird." And then you would correct me and go, "Oh no, that's the day night indicator, OC." And I go, "Oh, oops."
but I mean, that's a very nice way of saying it doesn't look all that pleasant to you, but horses for courses, as they say. I think it's really beautiful. Um, for a lot of minute repeaters, obviously the movement, its architecture, its layout is an highlight. That beautifully decorated 22 karat oversized micro rotor,
Macro
obviously
rotor. Yeah, macro rotor in this case.
macro macro. All right, if you are gonna call it that, I'm not gonna object. Um, we can just say off-center rotor if you would like. Obviously, since the watch is from 1989, it proudly holds the Geneva seal and is assembled, finished, and regulated according to all its requirements. Um, as it's emblematic of Patek, the governor has a cap that represents the Calatrava cross.
Yep, the Calatrava cross is cool there. Yeah.
It's kind of like one of those little details that Patek um, puts on, like the cap, for example, on the column wheel that they do on their hand wound chronographs. I think it's those kinds of signatures I always appreciate, even when I don't necessarily buy fully into the brand symbology. I mean, Vacheron Constantin, for example, with the Comte de Vache 1955, their hand wound um, chronograph that has a column wheel that has the appearance of the Maltese cross, for example. That's a very cute little detail if you care about such details. Um, this was a case made, by the way, by Jean-Pierre Hagman or Hagman, who is now the case maker for Recep Recepi, but really established his signature for making cases for chiming watches by Patek. So this is a great example of that. It's a white gold piece.
Yep. Which is the rarest of the metals, from what I understand, for this particular reference.
It should be, yeah. Uh, I don't know what counts necessarily, but overall, I think the watch was made for about a decade, maybe 11 years at most. And the white gold should be probably the rarest. What else?
According to Phillips, this is the only the fifth example in white gold to ever be known to the market.
Amazing. Of course, by the way, the 1989 makes this piece an early example. 1989 is not one year among others for Patek. Obviously, as I previously covered, this was something they introduced in on occasion of their 150th anniversary. I'll drop that link as well because, again, under I Heart Maldives' patronage, I had a whole episode about Patek Phillips minute repeaters in my RAR series. So let me drop that link. Would you like to add anything in the meantime?
Not on this particular piece, but I will add something important, and that is that we do have a goal of 5 super chats, and the clock is ticking, and we have 18 minutes left on the clock. We need 5 teal super chats. That is what, $5 or more? $5 or more, guys. There's 15 people watching. Give us a little bit of encouragement for the live auction results coverage. We need 5 super chats. $5 or more within the next 18 minutes, guys. We're counting on you to help us out.
By the way, that episode to which the link I posted in the chat, again, it came to us under the patronage of I Heart Maldives. Also, Horology Ancienne, the father and son couple on Instagram, the son, so the fils, was actually very kind to direct me towards some of the definitive references as well. So I'm grateful to both of them. And you have kind of encyclopedic coverage, or at least that was the aspiration, if you want to learn about Patek minute repeaters, some of the interesting auction results that have come from in this genre, so to speak. We even listened together to the chimes whenever there was a chance. I think there might be, no, there's no video or recording for this once. This piece sold for an amount in excess of $1 million in Swiss francs. Right here. And thank you, OC, for reminding people to super chat. Brody already obliged very kindly. Thank you, Brody, for $10. Thank you for the content. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brody.
Brody is really kind. He even drove us to a nightclub at the end of a long night after smoking cigars. That was very kind of him. I mean, it was also a ploy of you to try to drag him to the club as well.
Which didn't work. He had a drive ahead of him to head home, and didn't want to be up till 2 or 3 in the morning. But you and I, we got nothing to do.
Nothing better to do. At least you know. Again, I had a decent batting average in identifying some of the songs they were.
Really good.
They were playing, even though I wasn't necessarily in my bag. Well, what can we do? We had a lot of fun.
What's the third watch?
John D says this collab is one that needed to happen for quite some time. More, please.
Who would have thought there'd be this kind of reaction to just you and I being on a live stream?
I don't know. You know, in so many ways, the funny thing is probably, I'm not even gonna. Whatever. We are doing fine. I'm not gonna bring the negativity that other people perhaps represent about it. It was another chiming watch, actually, in this cushion case by AP. There was another watch in this auction represented in the same case, what is usually called a John Schaefer. Pardon me. Also a chiming watch that combines it with the star wheel complication. I was a bigger fan of that, but this is quite cool too, because if AP does one thing right, traditionally, that's open worked dials, and this has one of those. This is lot 57.
Lot 57, and the estimate was 25 to 50, and this sold for 254,000 Swiss francs.
It's a platinum piece, kind of around 33.5, 33 millimeters. So which makes it extremely wearable, by the way, for a minute repeater. You don't see those every day. You don't get those every day. Platinum piece. This is one of the pieces that marks AP's return to chiming watches in the 90s. It comes from 1996. The John Schaefer collection itself, I think, was made in the first part of the century. I want to say maybe, late 20s or 30s. This guy was an industrialist, vice chair of Allied Chemical and Dye Corporation, and had the 12 letters of his name as hour markers. So this is one of the ways AP paid homage to its own history when they opened what was then their new museum in 1992. And they exhibited the original John Schaefer there and kind of relaunched the series. And I think another name that this case comes in is literally tradition. So, that doesn't need any explanation. Apparently, there were about 45 examples of this reference, Phillips says. So it makes it quite rare. And like OC said, this reference 25761 was sold for an amount in excess of $250,000 in Swiss francs. And I really like the way that those Breguet numerals seem to be floating over the movement. I'm not sure if I'm as enthusiastic about the gold detailing of the minute track and the second subdial, but it's not a major quote-unquote deal breaker for me either. I love the subtle integration of the slider at the 9 o'clock flank of the case. Of course, as is the case with all sorts of open-worked movements with AP, it's beautifully decorated, classic three-finger bridge with open-work bridges as well. Very beautiful looking piece.
I would say, like, when I look at lot 62, by the way, just not to derail the conversation, but just to quickly look at lot 62, it's a very similar looking piece, right? With that cushion case. This is Patek Philippe, Breguet numerals. This one is obviously not open worked, but
and obviously not a chiming watch, but a perpetual calendar chronograph. Still a very prestigious complication.
But I can't help but think that with the introduction of the Cubitus, you're going to have more and more people taking a look at vintage cushion-caped watches, vintage non-round, non-circular watches, and going back and finding things that appeal to them. Patek Philippe told you to look at those.
It's possible. Yeah. I like this speculation. As an enthusiast, as a collector, I despise it. I hope it doesn't come true, because
it's going to 100% come true. 100% come true.
The great thing about, if you go this far back in history and you chance upon a relatively rare watch, that's another question. But for the most part, because Patek made its name with complications that can be worn on an everyday basis, in conversational, inoffensive designs. A lot of times when it comes to tonneau-shaped cases, cushion-shaped cases can be an exception, but the tonneau-shaped cases, especially when it comes to perpetual calendars, are some of the best deals on the secondary market for Patek Philippe perpetual calendars at the very least. Again, as you guys know, I'm making a comeback to live streaming, so sometimes I'm not as quick as I was, but I think 5940 would be a great example of one of those references that represents a relatively good deal. There are others and other examples of tonneau shaped, which is not the same at all, obviously, as cushion shaped pieces, but those are usually a great deal, especially in yellow gold. 5040 is an older reference. Okay, this is what I was talking about specifically. And that in yellow gold, for example, or even in white gold, is usually a great deal. So hopefully OC's prophecy doesn't come true.
It's 100% going to come true. And the other thing that I will predict now is
Which
that
is not but can we say it's not an investment advice, just to cover
no,
our
it's not. It's not investment advice. It's just saying that there's going to be just increased focus and spotlight on those shape watches that with non-round case shapes. And I think you're going to see a tremendous amount of interest now in Daniel Roth. Mark my word, Daniel Roth did very well across the auctions this
Yes.
week, and you're going to see a lot of interest in Daniel Roth just because it is a better execution of a non-round case with a somewhat rectangular.
By the way, can I say something about that as well? In the sense, like, again, I'm saying this as a fan of the brand, but we made the speculation already about $8 million. It must be F. Bejon to have bought this watch. So it would be naive to say Daniel Roth performed well because collectors love it. The Arnault family has some liquidity as well, and they may have bought at least some of those examples, being, of course, in the course of reviving the brand beyond
100%.
the subscription series of that tourbillon. By the way, with OC's own encouragement and with the kind generosity of our viewers, we are just one chat away from extending this discussion for another hour. I think the next watch I want to look at, since we have been speaking of a cushion shape, was that version of the John Schaefer that actually had the star wheel complication. But before I get to that, I want to read some super chats.
MCM $10. Cheers, guys. Please share your thoughts on my comment above, and that is he wanted us to take a look at lot number 137, which sold for over retail. I tried way under, but it went way over. So congratulations for trying to bid on it. Not sure why, since this reference is still available at retail. 137?
Let's do that, but let's keep an eye on lot number 6. Lot 137, I guess, not in the reloaded, right? He means
We'll take a look at that one. Yep, in
number 20, right?
Lot number 137
in Geneva auction number 20.
In Geneva auction 20, correct. Yep.
Because there's no 137 in.
I can drop the link in the private chat.
I think I got to it, right? It's the Ferdinand Berthoud.
It is the 137. Yes, for number 2, FB3.
Right. MCM, feel free to clarify also what you mean by our thoughts. Are you wondering because
this watch should sell for under retail, is what he's saying.
I think the only reason Ferdinand Berthoud usually doesn't sell under retail on the secondary market is because there are not many examples of it to go around to begin with. I'm not saying there are no exceptions. Sometimes people want to move a piece quite quickly. And I'm sure if you're patient And if you just wait for the right moment to snipe on the secondary market when such examples appear, you can do that. But I think the lead time is relatively long. Maybe the impression is because Ferdinand Berthoud is connected to Chopard, and they possibly make, a number of watches, during the year that are like Chopard. But as far as I know, Berthoud is, for all intents and purposes, an independent maker. So
Yep.
it's I'm not gonna just eyeball a number, but
I think
they probably make less than 100 watches a year anyway. So that's probably it. Someone wanted to have edition 3 right away, and especially in this configuration.
And this, I
And
think,
they bought it.
this lists for, I believe, 143,000 Swiss francs. By the time you add in tax and customs and who knows what, you're probably talking over 150,000 easily, maybe 155,000. So this was with the buyer's premium. I think it clocked in around 165,000. So there really wasn't that much of a premium.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand what MCM says, on one level, because they, overall, I think also 165, right? Yes, that includes premium, but if you are, let's say you are a US buyer, right? There's still
Tax.
fees
Yep.
that you are going to pay on top of that.
Yep.
So the premium is not insignificant. But then again, for someone who wanted to have it immediately, for a watch that is in such limited numbers, I think all the editions of Berthoud are, limited series anyways. They make only so many movements, period. So yeah, someone who wants immediate gratification, that's the only explanation I can give to it. Again, we have maybe about another 10 minutes to go. We just need one. No, we are counting down 45 seconds, and we need that one chat. Otherwise,
guys, we need one more chat. We need one super chat, teal in color, which means $5 or higher. Just one more super chat, guys.
Yeah, in the 30 seconds that remain, or otherwise we are gonna close in about 15 minutes. Kino Pravda, $10. Love the show. Thanks. Mike Hammer, 1999. Can you speak of the appeal of a watch that uses a sub-dial as the main time-telling dial? I think that takes us back to the Tourbillon Souverain for the record-breaking $8 million. That was lot 14. As your eyes get older, will you still enjoy it? I never understood the functionality of it. Thanks, guys. What do you think, OC?
I think he's right, but I think in this case, Epigeorn wanted to highlight other things in the usable dial space, and so relegated the timekeeping sub-dial to a portion of the overall dial. Generally speaking, though, I understand. Breguet is famous for having a small sub-dial at the top.
Yeah, the Tradition models especially. By the way, we didn't make it. That's okay. I will have to close around 6:45, but that's good. It's my face. We don't want it to get old. I'm just making a comeback, so it is what it is.
If we get a super chat that's $5 or more, maybe we can grandfather it in. So guys, please consider helping us reach the goal.
Well, we can't reach the goal anymore. It's past. It's done. Finito. Khalas. I don't know what else can we say. We can. It's done. But it's okay. It's okay. And MCM says, by the way, in the wake of the conversation yesterday, I'm calling Cellini tomorrow. Uh, man, Berthoud, it's it's one of my grails, and I was already salivating when I saw your Voutilainen that day, MCM. Much respect to you. Coming back to an answer to Mike Hammer's question, I can give you the cynical take of saying, who wears a mechanical watch to really tell time, but I don't want to do that. I think Ossi's point is on the nose. When it comes to Tourbillon Souverain, the point was literally to give exact same amount of space and focus to the time telling function as well as the regulating mechanism of the watch. So the tourbillon cage, as you see, even in this very early example, basically is the equal of the subdial for time telling. And that's kind of a design element that was carried over, of course, to chronomètre résonance and other watches as well by the brand. So I think it has a lot of intention behind it. It's the kind of watch that perhaps by that reduces the priority of time telling and makes a very bold, and I'm saying in terms of bold, like my head, representation of it on the dial. Which is not to say courageous, but that's literally the point that Jean is trying to make with this particular watch. A similar point can be made about chronomètre résonance, right? Look at how I fit two movements into this watch that basically regulate each other through this principle of resonance. That's the point of that watch. Yes, it can be used as a dual time watch, absolutely, but the point of its creation was a little different. And you're absolutely right. Perpetual calendars, similar styles, of watches. It's very hard to read as your eyes as your eyesight kind of worsens over time. I think you have a point there. Oh, okay, that's great. People understood that I'm not accepting super chats anymore. The super chats are fine. I'm just not going to go for a second hour. Yeah, you're welcome to super chat as much as you want, Ryan. But it's not going to go for a second hour. And also, I mean, I understand the sentiment. I mean, I would love to stay on with you for another hour, but if we keep doing this, setting goals and then, going for another hour anyway, people will stop contributing altogether. So, not sure if I want to set that as an example.
Bad precedent to set.
It is.
He's a stickler, guys. He's disciplined.
Look, man, I'll be very honest. In the past, I didn't want to make any bitter comments about the lack of super chats on this channel, even though it came out once every so often. So rather than bottling it up and having it come out once every so often, I will be very, very straightforward with it. I put in work. I study these things. I share my knowledge and passion. And more people should super chat because I know people are listening. So that's all I'm going to say. There should be some sort of compensation. I can't work for free forever.
In that case, I have some things that I want to bring up. So maybe I'll force you to run over just a little bit because I do have some pieces that I think were interesting.
Of course, because your presence is worth it in and of itself. Yes,
and maybe people will super chat nonetheless, even though I'm here. Lot number 12, which was Daniel Roth. This was the Tourbillon. This piece is all. I think we covered this in the pre-auction review. It's gorgeous. I love this one. What I particularly like about it is how the 3 levels of retrograde seconds.
Right.
Yeah, and this sold. The estimate was 60 to 120,000 Swiss francs, and it sold for 140,000 Swiss francs. It did really well, and this watch was also featured in a video that came out today on the YouTube channel Swiss Watch Gang. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
familiar with those guys, but
Actually, the collector himself, Jason, is a friend, and he sent me a link today. And I think on my next live stream, I'm just gonna watch it with the audience.
yeah, I watched it today. I kind of skimmed through it, but his collection is fantastic, and he has 4 Daniel Roths in his collection, which I think maybe was got my mind thinking about the increased.
That's beautiful. The Jason goes by the name at Holy Wrists on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my mind.
Holy wrists.
And he actually has number 10 of this series. And for that reason, LVMH and Le Fabrique du Temps was kind enough to reserve for him number 10 in the subscription series they just made. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of this case shape, especially this original iteration of it, because I think what makes a lot of horological designs, at least I will keep it humble, so beautiful is the play of different shapes and different sorts of angles. In this case, you have, again, the double ellipse itself has that perhaps gesture towards something rectangular and shaped, but ultimately is a rounded shape. The lugs, however, have a very nice angular detailing to them, which is something that I really appreciate. I think this particular version of the C118, being in stainless steel, is quite unique, because otherwise Daniel Roth, until the hourglass got into the game and started turning it into a high-end brand and an independent maker, then the stainless steel pieces came. But these early watches that he made, specifically the double-faced tourbillon, it's quite rare for it to appear in stainless steel. I don't know how many examples it was made. I'm guessing 20. Yes, the present example, the essay says, is from the only series made in a limited edition in stainless steel for only 20 pieces. And this is number 12, which is engraved on the dial. We were just talking about, perhaps from a slightly negative perspective, about the Tourbillon Souverain by F.P. Jean. In this case, again, in the early 2000s, this has become a rite of passage. But to have a tourbillon on a wristwatch, that was really off Daniel Roth's making. He was already working on the project when he was still with Breguet, collaborating with the movement maker Le Mania for the tourbillon movement. But his tourbillon, as an independent maker, actually came out before his tourbillon wristwatch than Breguet. Sorry, you were saying something, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say that this is the easiest job on YouTube, because I could just mention a lot number and you go on for like 7 minutes talking about all the virtues of it. So it's great for me.
Ryan Joffrey, 199. GTSY. What?
Good to see you. Good to see you, OC. God bless young Brando. Ciao. U.S. and Israel forever.
Respect U.S. and Israel. Yeah, that's amazing. And
I
JB.
pronounce it. Is it? I say it's Hofre. It's Ryan Hofre. So Ryan, I think I'm a stickler for pronunciation. I think I have your last name
Is it?
correct. So
Is it?
just yeah, I'm
He can
just
he can he can correct it. I mean, it's
correct.
either Joffrey or
I think it's
Joffrey.
Hofre. I think it's Hofre. I'm pretty sure. Let me know if I'm wrong. And Jake Brooks, $20 super chat. Young Brando, awesome. Thank you, Jake.
This is amazing, and it has that beautiful wooden box for presentation. Of course, um, the papers that go with it. I like the double-faced representation. There's a pointer date, quite oversized, and a power reserve indicator, and the same pinstripe guilloche treatment, framed, of course, by coin edging, for every single sector too. So as Breguet intended, as Daniel Roth brought into the future, so to speak, a great representation of that, and in a rare stainless steel case, sold for almost 140,000 in Swiss francs, including the premium.
Yep. And then there was also a minute repeater lot number 24, much simpler dial. The case was in white gold, but it was a minute repeater. That one sold very well as well.
That's beautiful too.
It's a good one. See, I'm telling you, Daniel Roth is gonna. It's not gonna. It was probably taking off long before the Cubitus inspired people to take a look at non-conventional watches, but I think Daniel Roth in particular is in for a boom period.
Again, for me, MCM said this in the chat, the original independent maker, and this is kind of the drum I beat every single time when it comes to Daniel Roth, whenever this word is mentioned. But another reason to call him the original independent is also because he defined an entire style, right? Of course, people go crazy, and rightly so, about Kari Voutilainen's guilloche dials, but that aesthetic of having these sorts of guilloche dials as the gold standard for wristwatches, for independent watchmaking, I think had a lot to do with how Daniel Roth reinvented the whole thing in Breguet. And look at this again. You not only have various different treatments or patterns rather of guilloche, but also again, every single sector is framed by that coin edging.
Yep.
The level of detail is incredible. This one is Claude Paris, by the way, rather than the stripes, which in and of itself, I think, makes it very interesting for Daniel Roth. Almost always much more rare. Sorry, go ahead, Austin.
No, while we're on the topic, I'm going to ask you to do a couple of more, just to get your quick 2-minute reactions. Lot number 32.
Can we take a quick look at the movement before we move on? Because
Your
again,
channel. Do whatever you want.
With minute repeaters, I think that's always incredibly cool. There's the governor. Beautiful finishing.
Hello, governor.
And you see the double wrapped gong. I would really love to. I wonder. I think there was there's no video for this one. So once again, it's something that we won't hear. It's a white gold piece. Very interesting. Sold for 152,400. All right, let's do the
real
two.
quick. Yeah, real quick. 32. Lot 32.
Also
quick
reloaded.
Reaction. Yeah.
Yeah. So papillon was basically, which is French for butterfly. That was practically Daniel Roth's last creation for his own brand. He moved on in earnest after the Papillon series. And after the brand was sold to Bulgari, he had moved on to different pastures altogether. This is a reference C117, number 43 of 110 pieces in white gold. The butterfly shape or the butterfly name refers to this multi-dimensional or stepped dial itself, as you can see. It's like an upward facing crescent is the minute track. And of course, this is a jump hour piece with the second subdial at its very center. Once again, beautiful Claude Paris or hobnail guilloche for a great part of the dial, and a wave pattern for the second subdial as well, wonderfully distinguished from each other, and a solid gold rotor that's marked for the 10th anniversary, which is when this series was introduced, 10th anniversary of the Daniel Roth brand, number 43 out of 110.
There you go. And what did this sell for?
This sold for $58,420.
Terrific. There's a bunch of Daniel Roths in this auction. I'll just bring up one more if you'll indulge me, young Brando. Lot number 58.
58. And then we will answer Evan's question.
Sure. Look at that. It's fucking striking, isn't it?
Wow. Again, the Daniel Roth perpetual calendar is quite something. It is, again, a significant piece of horological history, not only because it's a Daniel Roth, but because it's a project, it's a movement that Daniel Roth and Philippe Dufort collaborated on. The aim was to make an instantaneous perpetual calendar, meaning, where the indications switch in concert. At midnight, the date instantaneously jumps, where all the indications would jump together precisely at midnight rather than gradually moving. They achieved a semi-instantaneous movement, which was at that moment in history still quite significant. This is the movement itself, dial side. Of course, that's why it has this representation. This is how the watch looks from the back. Clearly a custom rotor for a special customer that represents and puts into sharp relief their initials, hand engraved details.
What's fascinating about that, if you look at it, is obviously the movement is a round movement, but the case isn't round. So you can see the rotor actually slides under the edge of the case there in the back. So it's just a cool little thing,
It's a very shrewd observation, as you're wont to do, OC.
But a huge shout out to the Geneva Convention that governs all Geneva Swiss making. Thank you.
What? Which Geneva Convention are we talking about? Okay, let's not muddy the waters. I also, by the way, look, the fashionable thing is to combine pink gold cases with chocolate brown dials these days, and I love that as much as anybody. But for a little bit more contrast, the black works really well too. I don't know. I kind of love that. JLC does this really well too, combining black dials with 5N pink gold cases. Let's see. And maybe to close the show, by the way, guys, please hit the like button. Buying memberships, gifting memberships to others is a great way to bring new enthusiasts into the channel. So that's always welcome. Your super chats, all 7 of them today, are greatly appreciated. So I really, really thank you again. I Heart Maldives. I'm sorry to have missed out on the 3 lots that I prioritized today, at least as an auction review. I hope this was of some value to you. So I do appreciate that if you're still in the audience. OC just became a member.
There you go.
That's great. That represents some kind of commitment for me. So
If you don't have a star, if you don't have a star next to your name in the chat, and you think you might be watching on a regular basis, think about becoming a member and supporting the channel with a. You get a free super chat too. Every 30 days, you get a free member milestone super chat. So think about it.
Right. That's as good of a reason as any. So let's take a look at Evan's super chat. Evan is a member. Build a 3-piece collection: stainless steel, Rolex, entry level, Patek Philippe, and other. OC, I'm gonna let you go first.
That is so difficult to do without knowing a lot about your background and what you want to accomplish with your 3-piece. But
especially because the third is other. If it were at least not necessarily a brand name, but if it were a budget kind, because stainless steel Rolex and entry level Patek, that's a budget in and of itself. You can say 15,000, 35 to 40, if it's available at retail for sure, and then go on to another. JD, thank you, by the way. And Hoffrey, by the way, confirmed that that's exactly how
Hoffrey,
you read his name. So I will do that from now on. Goldie said, I'd love you to see Roger Dubuis homage pieces. I've always done that, by the way, but I will highlight them, whatever I find in these auctions. Go ahead, Mostly. Sorry.
No, I think for your Rolex piece, you can either do Submariner or a GMT. So you have a lot of variety there. So you could choose a black Submariner, date or no date. You could choose one with the green bezel. Or if you like the GMT, there's so many variations there. You can do green, lefty, Sprite. You can do a Batman. You can do a Pepsi. You can do a two-tone root beer. So pick one there. But if you want to focus on stainless steel, you could just go GMT or Submariner. For Patek Philippe, an entry-level Patek Philippe. So I'm going to assume you mean non-complication. I would just go with a 6119 Calatrava. No date, just a small sub-seconds at the bottom. You could choose either rose gold with the off-white dial or white gold with the charcoal dial. And then for your other, if you want to go Holy Trinity, since you have Patek Philippe, you want to get one more member of the Holy Trinity, maybe something like a Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. Then you got a pretty solid 3-piece collection there.
Solid, very solid. Yep. I will start from the reverse order. As you guys know, I love difficulty. I love being difficult. I love difficult questions. I would say, since we are sticking to something safe, something probably round when it comes to Rolex and entry-level Patek, because whatever they introduced at the entry level is not worth your time. It's a horrible design, and you are not going to get it at entry-level pricing, most probably, unless you're a celebrity. So forget about that. Get yourself a nice Reverso. That's all you need as your other piece. It's a great it's a great deviation from the norm. Old ladies love it. If you're chasing cougars in town, it's the best watch to wear. Get yourself an ultra thin stainless steel from when they made them back in 2011. If you find the limited US editions, they're worth every penny you will pay. With the syringe hands and the black dial, but even the ones that are the standard production model, I think those are great watches. Switching back to stainless steel Rolex, I think you want a watch, again, in a three-piece collection that will do double duty, that will give you the best range. I would go with an Explorer. It was good for Ian Fleming. It should be good for you for all occasions. Be a real man and get the 36 millimeter because no one else except people you're having sex with have to know anything about your dick size, and certainly they won't glean it from the watch you're wearing. So don't worry about diameter. Be a real man. Get a 36 millimeter Rolex Explorer, the standard one right now, which I think is the reference 124270, is as good as anything. For entry-level Patek, I will suggest actually going into the secondary market, because that's where you find the entry-level prices they actually promise. I would say now that you have basically two time-only watches, one that's perhaps more built for the everyday, thanks to Rolex's brand power, the Oyster Perpetual Explorer, beautiful piece. Jesle Coutre Reverso, also stainless steel piece. So I would say go with something complicated for everyday wear from Patek and go with a 5960. That will be still under $50,000. I think you can pick up a great example around 45, in fact. Of course, you can still go with stainless steel if you like the bracelet, but you already have your bracelet watch in the Explorer. So you can take a little bit more risks and go with the 5960G, which is a beautiful blue dial. Let's bring that up. Why not bring up an example from Chrono 24?
I was going to say that seems pretty pricey, but
No, it's
for
not.
an entry level Patek Philippe, 50,000 is kind of,
Actually 46. I mean, that's they have just introduced entry level piece that's basically priced the same as this. No. So I'm just going by their own metric. For me, the entry level Patek should be the Aquanaut, but they're not going to give it to you. So why bother? This is what I have in mind. Or you can go with 5930G if you want something sportier. I don't know what the hell this is. This is one of my all-time favorite models. Again, an homage to a piece that Patek Philippe holds in the museum that they made for a Genevan physician in a bygone time, a reference 1415 that combines heure universelle, world time, with a chronograph. This was a piece they introduced, and they have later replaced it with a bigger stainless steel model with that salmon carbon fiber nonsense. You don't need that. That's much too expensive. Again, at this same price range, you get a beautiful white gold blue dial piece that's extremely functional, and that combines something that is signature Patek Philippe with another movement that was, in fact, Patek's first automatic chronograph movement as well. And that's another watch you can get under $50,000 on the secondary market. Again, a lot of money, like OC said. I agree, but that's what's become entry-level Patek Philippe.
Yeah, I appreciate that you considered the secondary as the channel from which to buy for the Patek. Is actually wasn't even thinking around that route, so made perfect sense.
Yeah, maybe in an ideal world we would answer this question differently, right? But that being said, for me, I almost always go to the secondary market. To this day, I have the, some might call it ignominy, but I hold this as a badge of pride. I've never bought a watch at retail. Um, you know, I don't care about building relationships. I don't care about going on journeys. I set aside my money. I want to buy a watch. I go and buy a watch. Oh, a kitty. Um, I go and buy a watch, that I have been eyeing on some jeweler's window. That's how things are supposed to be. Now those windows have become virtual in some sense, but that's where we go. Brand doc.
That's right, Brandock. Thank you,
That's also,
Gigadwa.
that is the right pronunciation of that
That's
name,
right.
apparently, which I started reading as Brando C, but Brandock is just fine.
Would it be too much to ask? And it's your show, your channel. But I do have, there are like 3 or 4 or 5 lots that I just want your hot takes on. Like,
Okay, all right.
Like 1 or 2 minute. I know we're running a little bit over, but maybe 1 or 2 minute your hot take. So the first one is lot number 43, because we did discuss this one in the preview. Just general reaction to its selling price.
Okay, which, do you have the link, or is it?
It's the reloaded Phillips reloaded, lot number 43.
All right, let's take a look. Sorry, I was messaging someone. My
No problem.
apologies. Evan H says, great answers. Thank you, guys. Love you, Evan.
Even though I like my answers better, but that's okay.
Evan, by the way, being one of the great people I met in person in New York, I appreciate him even more. And we have been talking about this, OC, and I think, beyond my whole shtick of like, no viewers or followers or whatever else bought or sold. I think, one of the powers of building channels around audiences with a tight-knit group is that you can actually, these are real people who actually care about your show, care about what you have to say, at least as a basis of discussion back and forth, and even a nice argument or banter. And that is something that I was experiencing in an attenuated manner, perhaps, whenever I got the chance to attend events in Southern California. But now I had the chance to go to the other coast, hang out with some of you guys in New York, and come back and enjoy, again, your company and others. There was a lot of overlap at the Barroso event in Los Angeles. I think that energized me in a different way. Honestly, I'm not sure if I would think of a full scale comeback if it weren't for that. So be careful of what you wished for or the
adverse
you
repercussions.
You walk up, yeah. So not 42, you said, right?
42. This is one that you specifically brought up.
I did.
In the preview.
I brought up Frank Miller in the preview. I thought I was mostly talking shit about Frank Miller.
Oh, sorry, 43. 43.
Okay. But this is cool as well, by the way. If you're gonna get one, that should be it. Yeah. You want my?
Well, the estimate was, the estimate was 20 to 40, and it came in at 101,000.
I have to say that I have seen, I'm not going to say many, but I've seen a considerable number of examples of this piece, which is, by the way, the first self-winding tourbillon, first tourbillon wristwatch produced in a series, so on and so forth. We counted some of the decorations and, hallmarks of this piece. All of that being said, the yellow gold examples used to go for low 20s. Now, whenever they come to the market, long before this auction, I see them listed at 40,000 roughly. That doesn't necessarily mean they will sell at that price, but over the years, there was a better appreciation of how important this piece was historically, even though it was a little perhaps too daring aesthetically. I think it's a brilliant design, but it kind of, hits against that problem we were talking about in more generally about shaped watches, right? It's not everyone's flavor.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, platinum examples of it, I have seen listed much more rarely. Like over the last decade, for example, I've seen, and I've been looking occasionally, let's say 12 of the yellow gold pieces. To that, I've seen only one platinum. So it's certainly more rare. I don't actually know what the essay says in terms of how rare it is. Only 22 out of 401 pieces that were made of the reference 25,643 were made. So that's in fact
In platinum.
20 to 1, right? Roughly. Right? For every 20 yellow gold, there's one platinum. I'm really bad at math. So
yep, basically it. Yeah.
So I think for that, the price is not outrageous. I was expecting it to perhaps fall under the radar, but again, Phillips's curation of this around this thematic and with all the other strong watches, I think made it also a lot more attractive. But then again, the watch has it checks a lot of boxes, and the fact that it's platinum adds to its rarity and possibly desirability.
Thank you. Did you see lot number 40? What is your take on this one?
Let's see what it is. Aha. Yeah.
The egg.
Yeah. Look, I have to say, as let's give it a nice view here, just so I don't blind people. I will say something very general about pocket watches first. They're a thing. I mean, it's really for a lot of us collectors who give a lot of priority, a lot of primacy, or even exclusivity to wristwatches. That's a genre that actually holds a lot of appeal. In the past, I've explained, smaller wristwatches and dress watches gaining vogue specifically because people have exhausted all their energies and resources in buying expensive and hyped up sports watches. So now that's a gaping hole in their collection and they want to go for it. And I feel like, the more people get to experience in person the kind of substantive presence pocket watches are, the more they will inevitably get into them. I'm not going to say they're going to be necessarily hyped up, but there's a lot of tactile appeal to them. There's a lot of weight to them, like a big pocket watch in precious metal. Again, it's a thing, to say it in the language of, late show hosts.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular piece obviously has, once again, a lot of importance in terms of the history of independent watchmaking. It's an Oman Jurgensen watch made by Derek Pratt. It was listed by Helmut Kott, who, in the wake of his partner's passing, his business partner's passing, had to basically oversee the revival of the Oman Jurgensen brand. This piece has détente escapement with a remontoire. Obviously, that's something that became popularized with F.P. Jean, but obviously has a lot more appeal now. It is like, I don't necessarily like its oval shape, but from anyone who have seen it in person, I have heard nothing but beautiful things. It looks stunningly finished in every way. In an interesting way, it says "Invenit et fecit," Derek Pratt, which obviously Jean made into his slogan. And I would say the timeline is interesting because this is 2005, but I won't make any ignorant statement. I'm sure that sort of signature has some kind of history that I don't know in watchmaking. There are things that I don't know. And ABNS, by the way, who has told me about his interest on this piece in Instagram, he says, "I'm glad I didn't liquidate my assets for that oval Pratt. Imagine paying 3.7 million and tax and customs to be paid an extra." I think this was kind of fated to go for a lot.
Yep. Actually, I have quite a few lots that I want to review, but in the interest of time, and I know that you do want to kind of put a pin in it,
I'm wrapping up, but yeah, I'll go. I'll play along for
play along
another
for a few
10
more
minutes.
minutes.
Another
Thank
10
you.
minutes.
Lot number 2, which we brought up, I think it's incredible, but a lot of people don't like it.
Abel, another brand that that they're trying to hype up these days. I like Abel as well.
I like this one, obviously, because of the Zenith movement that is featured inside and out. It's a beautiful, symmetrical movement on the dial,
Mhm.
and that piece is iconic. It was featured in Miami Vice, adorning the wrist of Don Johnson's character, Sonny Crockett.
Yeah.
And while this isn't the exact piece that was used in the series, it is the same model. Hammer price
So
on this one was 13,500, and with the buyer's premium, brought it up to 17,000. It's a little, steep according to the estimates, but it is an all gold watch.
I love you were about to say it's a little stiff. Um, I share the sentiment about Zenit El Primero movement. Beyond its legacy as one of the first self-winding chronograph movements to have been made. I like how it looks on the dial. Ironically, and not for no good reason, Rolex's representation of it, Rolex's use of it, is more famous than the brand can ever be. As always, Rolex has in one reference number more important achievements, at least commercially, than the entire existence of certain brands. And this is the case when it comes to the reference 16520. And it's as simple as eliminating this idiotic thing that is added to every other watch by stupid marketeers. Talk about symmetry, Ossi. I'm sorry, and you invited the hot take, so
Yep.
you're going to deal with it. But otherwise, honestly, again, this was perhaps one of the least aspirational brands in this reloaded auction. And a brand that Phillips has been hyping up for quite some time. But still, including the premium, 17 for a gold watch on a full bracelet doesn't sound too bad. The Zenit El Primero movement obviously was used in a lot of luxury chronographs as well, in precious metal, including Daniel Ross kind of second era for their self-winding chronographs, for Parmigiani Fleurier, again, automatic chronographs, and many others. So for a luxury sports chronograph that is automatic, that's a great base to work with. And I actually like the design of this watch. As a Royal Oak fan, I'm always going to be a fan of exposed bolts or screws. So this works great for me. And I like the dimensions, like, it's 38 millimeters, not excessively big.
Agreed. I like it. So many watches sold over the estimates. I'm not sure because the estimates were systematically low to create the impression of a great result. But if you go through all 60 plus lots in the Phillips Reloaded auction, a lot of watches selling for 150,000 plus, 200,000 plus.
Are we going to talk about one more watch? Did you have one more watch, or this is the last one?
I mean, maybe if we want to do a hype watch, maybe we should cover lot number to get the most bang for buck. Lot number 27.
And by the way, I like your observation about the low estimates. Of course, I talk a lot about how the low estimates are there in the first place to attract early bidders, even in advanced bids, so that a seemingly less desirable or aspirational watch would actually get that initial bump. And suddenly, because of that bump and excitement, there is a snowball effect that brings in more bids. But like you said, since after the actual auction, they love representing these details about, like, how much in excess in total and individually these lots sold. It's another way of gaming the system as well, to set lower estimates, conservative estimates.
But even without the estimates, when you go through piece after piece after piece that sells for the pieces that hammer for 150 and have an all-in price of 175, when you see watch after watch after watch that's 175,000, you think to yourself, the watch market is back, or maybe it didn't go, because we did have maybe in Q1, Q2, we had some really soft auctions earlier this year. And so I think it is good for the industry. It's good for the auction market to have what seems to be powerful results and exuberance.
You're right, I think. I agree that these were great results. I don't resent the enthusiasm and exuberance, as you called it. I just don't think that, sometimes we get carried away too easily about the wider or the broader or the more long-term effects that one good auction season might have on the market. And I'm just saying it's too early to say whether this is an indication of how the market is going to go. That again, that's one of the great things that makes this channel so purely independent, since I don't work with any secondary market dealers openly or behind the scenes. I don't have to tell you, this is a great moment to buy watches, guys. Go ahead and visit X, Y, and Z. So, you can get the greatest deals while you can. I won't say that, because I don't think it's a good, it's always better to wait. Always better to be patient.
Well,
that has never failed me.
I'm not 100% sure that the sentiment is the case. I mean, I think what you may find is that customers who are looking for particular references back in 2018, 2019, when they had the chance to buy those references at X price and they decided to let those pass them by, that now they're revisiting those pieces 5-6 years later and finding them double or triple what they were back then and hoping to buy them at double what they were 6 years ago.
That's actually not true. A lot of after the so-called correction in the market, most pieces have returned to the levels that they were exactly around 2019. Now,
Okay.
10 years before that, that's another game altogether. But then again, inflation numbers and adjustments might give us a different kind of picture. Ultimately, I think the secondary market, especially with the way that brands have been raising their retail prices, will always continue to give great deals. And if you have missed out on certain watches, there's always other ones that are even a better deal. So if you're kicking yourself for having missed out on a deal in 2018, 2019 for a watch that's now double the value, my advice is move on from that watch. There's so many more, and you don't have to play the game that hype beasts and shady gray market dealers play. There's lots of value on the secondary market, always. But speaking of not paying attention to the hype, this is kind of the OG hype watch, OC,
Yep,
right?
sure is.
Earlier, one of our members was indicating that this watch was bought by a certain buyer. This is Apes with a wonderful flag next to him as well. Rainbow Daytona going to Fawaz Hassawi from Kuwait. Well, congratulations to Mr. Hassawi from Kuwait. Apparently, this is the name of the person who ended up buying the watch.
Terrific.
This is 16599 SAAEC, which literally stands for a rainbow made out of sapphires in Rolex's abbreviation of the French explanation. It's now our bow, as you guys know, in the modern references, which have become quite popular off the catalog, especially over the years. This was one that was made in 1994 in white gold. Speaking of the Zenith movement, this is the generation. So this watch is powered by Rolex's Caliber 430, which works on the base of the Zenith El Primero Caliber 400, and it sold for an amount in excess of 5.5 million Swiss francs, including the premium.
Yep. And this is the only Rainbow Daytona powered by that movement.
I mean, again, much like a blue ceramic AP, a Rainbow Daytona is a watch that I want to hate. But having actually seen different iterations and different metals over the years, I have to say, again, as an object in the world, I like them. I would never wear a watch like this on my wrist for an occasion of any sort. That being said, they're beautiful to observe. They're a great sight. It's a style that opened up so much more, by the way, than just these excessively gem set pieces, right? Before these kinds of rainbows and sheikh examples were not even seen in the world of Rolex. Even the idea of a precious metal sports watch, even though it was represented in Rolex catalog, was seen as excessive, unnecessary, so on and so forth. Nowadays, we broke that diamond ceiling, let's say. or sapphire ceiling, rather. It's it's a historical importance that's more than just being the one in a genre that was much more popular later on.
Yes. Now, so that I think that safely wraps up coverage of the Phillips Reloaded auction, which was approximately 65 lots, something like that. Now, there's another
Very
auction.
helpful, OC. But I might even have a date to go to, and I'm trying to get out of a
right.
dry spell. So we have provided 45 minutes at least an extra, without even covering the goal, which
That's
I
right.
think is already very nice, and something that I did in deference to you more than anything. But
Thank
I
you.
think this is the end of my energies. The rest of my energies for tonight, I will push from my brain towards my loins and get myself out of here.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a link. I don't know if I can drop links in your chat. I don't know if it'll allow me to do that. No, it won't.
But you can drop. Well, I will. You can give it to me first, but I will give
Okay,
you
I
a
dropped
rant
it.
in the chat.
All
You
right.
can
Thank you.
do now, but as I said, I will never give anyone a ranch in my channel, but ranch in the chat is fine. There you go.
Cool.
And now you can actually send that link, I think, directly to
boom.
the chat.
Okay, cool. So this link is to a Christie's auction. It's called the Christie's Rare Watches. I think it's for charity, and there are over 150 lots in this auction. It kicks off tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Eastern time. And if I'm so inspired, I might do a live auction stream.
And you might
starting at
even I think before you drop the link to the auction, you might want to drop a link to your channel. Again, I know you love to say everyone knows you already and everyone is subscribed to
Everybody
your
knows.
channel, but there might be people who need my encouragement, to subscribe to. It's okay, guys. OC is an okay guy, especially since he divorced from that nasty creature that goes by the name Tim Wright. So he has removed himself from the basket of deplorables as a presidential candidate that has once called it. Now you can subscribe to his channel.
Now I'm okay. Now, yeah, everyone knows what my channel is, but visit the link to Christie's.com, browse through the 159 lots there. Be ready, get a good night's sleep, wake up tomorrow morning bright and early at 7 a.m. Eastern. Maybe if I'm up, I'll fire up a live from Christie's in Geneva live stream, and we'll go through the auction tomorrow.
I got up for only watch at 5. There's no fucking way I'm waking up for a watch auction at 4, to live stream a watch auction at 4 a.m.
But there's some cool stuff in here. There's beach Daytonas. There's all kinds of modern stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff. So you might have fun watching. Let's let Brando get on his date.
It will be great. So I hope OC does a live stream. I hope I can catch it later.
Later.
Yeah, especially if I get lucky tonight. There's no way that I'm even watching a live stream in any reasonable hour in the morning. But that being said, I need to go. You need to hit the like button. Love you, OC. Thank you so much for being part of this. Again, the link was pinned for everyone. OC was just one of the guys tonight, not the special guest that he was yesterday, because apparently he doesn't want to work for me, which is fine. I like him better as a guest anyway. But that being said, thank you so much for your support, especially those of you including OC, who have contributed to the channel. OC became a member, and Brody, MCM, Mike Hammer, Kino Pravda, Ryan Hoffrey, Jake Brooks, and Evan H have given these beautiful super chats. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one, which will probably be continuing this auction coverage, not in real time like OC has promised to do tomorrow, but as in the form of a review. But until the next one, stay safe, stay healthy, and wear and enjoy your watches. Don't keep stickers on like OC sometimes does, please. Actually wear the watches.
Yeah, wear them. All right. Peace out. Have a good night, everybody.